Great. No, okay. Yes. Tim, can you just summarize the message?
You've started with that, have you? What? Just summarize it.
Yeah. What's it all about? What's this about?
That sounds like a cue for a song.
Yeah.
Shall I sing a summarized version of the message?
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
It wouldn't be, not if I sang it. So the message is that what you've always taken to be life, which is my life, separate from everything else, is not actually how it is. Is that short enough?
Yeah.
Is that to the point?
Yeah, I think so. No
So,
separation. No separation.
So the normal way most human beings seem to experience life is through themselves, through a self, via me. It's like there's an intermediary. There's a everything is happening to me, for me, or against me, and so the sense of being who I am colors everything in life. For most human beings, their life is a separate life. So most human beings would talk about my life as separate from life. And that's not how it is. But it is how it feels. It does feel like that. When there's a sense of me, then that's how it feels.
Mm.
And it seems that this message has always been around, and it only seems to resonate with a few. I have no idea why it resonates with a few and not with many, or why those few and not others. I have no idea about any of that. But for a few, the message that it only has to be heard once, and as radical as it is, then it's known to be, oh yeah, that is how it is. I don't know how. I know that that's how it is. There's no knowing that, but it just resonates is the best word that, I mean, I've heard most speakers say that word, and that's how it is. I think it's a knowing without knowing.
And it's not possible to have any proof or evidence for what you're saying.
None. No, because if it was evidence based, then of course that would be separation. All evidence is for me.
That's two things. That's the evidence for something.
Yeah, because that's what, as me, I always said that. I always said, well, prove it to me. And by that, I mean, show me. I need to see it to believe it. And what we're talking about is not a belief at all. It doesn't take any believing. It's just as it is. And that's hard to convey. Most selves who hear this message say, oh, it's just another ridiculous belief. But it's not a belief at all. This doesn't take any believing. It is as it is. There's no belief required. That's one of the most wonderful things about speaking about it. You can't be wrong, because it's the end of belief that there is a right or a wrong. And because, of course, that's what beliefs are. So I believe this until it's proved otherwise, and then I believe that. And this is all inclusive, so it includes all beliefs. beliefs, but they're just what they are, just beliefs, not just because I believe it or there's a belief in it doesn't make it more right. It doesn't make it more accurate just because I believe it. Whereas most selves, what the self does is, as me, I collect beliefs, beliefs to be real, and I collect to reinforce the sense that I'm real. You challenge most me's sense, their core beliefs, and they'll feel incredibly threatened and usually get very aggressive because you're threatening their very sense of self. The sense of self is a set of beliefs. It's more than that, actually, but as well as feeling, it's a bodily felt sense. But beliefs are, of course, in the, if most me's describe what they are, if you say to most human beings, who are you? They will talk about their personal history, their story, and a big part of their story is what they believe in that makes them uniquely themselves. And it's weird that the beliefs don't disappear with the absence of self. They're just seen to be beliefs and of no more significance than anything else. If you ask me what I believe, I could easily say, I might say nothing, but that wouldn't be strictly true. The beliefs that Tim's always held, they're still there, but they don't have any weight because they're not mine. And yeah, so life's much lighter without beliefs being mine. Well, nothing's mine. And yet everything is exactly the same. Nothing gets lost apart from everything is lost to me. So it's the weirdest thing to talk about, in the sense that nothing changes and everything changes completely.
When the me apparently drops away, is there a kind of laziness and relaxation? Can you say that? Like with everything, it's like more okay.
Well, I mean, I don't think it has to be like that at all. I don't think there's any way. I think each character would experience, it would manifest in a different way, but it's very likely that things will be a lot easier without the constant thoughts of how it should be, which is all me is ever really thinking. There isn't a way it should be, because that was, and of course, if you really preferred lying in bed rather than getting up and going to work, then probably going to work stops. Probably.
That was what.
But there's no rule. Of course, it's, if you spoke to 20 different human beings who apparently and the experience is likely to be different, but it will have similarities. Lightness is better than laziness, I think, because it might be that you continue working if it wasn't a real chore, and it was the self-righteousness of me that kept the work going, even though naturally the work was painful. There are some human beings who love their work.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing if me fell away, then yeah, work would continue probably if they love doing it. I don't know. If you're an artist, I guess that is. So if you're a musician or an art, a sculptor, or I don't know. and that was your joy, then, I mean, this is purely hypothetical what we're talking about.
Yeah, of course. But the sense of you know, that I have to do something will fall away. You know, it's no it's no like okay. Can you tell Tim a little bit about the story of Tim? Were you attending talks and were you for many years, or did you just come?
I attended talks, and I was an addict to YouTube clips, like most seekers in non-duality are. I spent while I was still working, I'd spend virtually all my free time watching YouTube clips. That's what I did. That was where most of my seeking was, just as probably yours is, Herlof.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, because that's what the wonder of the internet is that this message is now freely available, whereas for everyone maybe to stumble across it. Whereas in the past, of course, it wasn't. You needed the guru or the teacher or the sage, whatever you want to call human beings whose self falls away. They had to be in your village or in the next town until very recently. And now you can access everyone who's speaking about this. So that's what I did. I did that for years. And I went to see quite a few speakers in England.
So now the video stopped.
Fortunate to live, or unfortunate to live close to London, because you can see lots of speakers there. So I went to see lots of different speakers. I still go to see Tony Parsons because I've got lots of friends who go to see Tony Parsons. So it's a great social event.
Do you ever get provoked by like gurus trying to do something for people? You know, like you, they are like saying you can become blah blah blah. Do you get? Is it something that like oh you shouldn't like?
No, it's really funny. No, because I know some speakers do get that really annoys some what you might call radical non-duality speakers. I know I know of quite a few. I've been in meetings with a few when they've got very annoyed. All it does to me is just turn me off. I would, if I heard it, I would have to leave. I would just, but there wouldn't be any anger about it. Unless I was made to listen to it, then I probably would. But it's just of no interest because it's for me, it's just it has no it doesn't make me angry, no, because because all it's doing is trying to help. So that's like saying I'd get angry about therapists. For me, it would be the same thing. And I couldn't be angry with therapists. If you've got a very sad or anxious sense of self, you're full of anxiety, you're full of fear, then probably a therapist will help you have less. And I don't doubt that speakers who speak about a way or a practice or a method can help a sense of self feel better about itself. but I've no interest in that, because that's of no interest. I did that long enough as a self, helping selves. And this isn't about helping at all.
Because there's no one to help.
No.
But I know a parent person that is apparently having it's no and I just I find it strange that no one should feel aggressive towards some teachers. I just find that, like, okay, if there's no one there, why do you know? Oh, you should,
yeah. Well, and of course the people. So what is obvious, that the teacher who is teaching that method, whatever they're teaching, that path that they're teaching, they can't do other than do what they're doing.
Yeah, of course.
And the people who are going to see them, the human beings who turn up, they can't do other than turn up there. So there's nothing to be angry about. I do understand why. It makes sense why some people in radical non-duality, as we might call it, do get angry about it, because it seemingly is perpetuating the self.
Yeah, misleading or
yeah, because it's saying, look, there isn't a self, but there is a path to becoming a no self. But of course, there's equally isn't a no self. The funniest thing about this is, of course, I talk about no self, or the falling away of self, as though then there will be a replacement, because that's all that we can do as in a rational way. The only thing you can think of is, okay, so self falls away. Well, what's left then? Oh, what's left is no self. And so as a self, you hear that and think, oh, there'll be a no self, so then I'll be a no self. But it really, that, of course, I'm not saying that. That isn't what's being said at all. There's no knowing what is in place of me, because me was never there. Me was illusory. So nothing is in place of me. So nothing changes. I mean, that's the greatest paradox of all. So we're talking, I spend most of my time now, apparently, talking about this change that isn't a change at all. And yet I could, if I think about the past, then everything has changed. But it's not a change where something else has been put in place.
Sorry, Tim, my daughter just came up here.
Mom, yeah, well, my son might be
okay.
here in a minute.
Okay, yeah.
He could be here any moment.
Yeah. But just one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So so there is no. So there's no. Really, the point is, well, to put it succinctly, there is no more. There is no know me, as well as know me.
Yeah. Here it is. I'm like waiting for that moment when the me will drop away. I catch myself thinking about it a lot. Maybe it just drops away when I'm biking down the street now. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about it, although I have heard so many times that,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, again, if you listen to some speakers, there is a suggestion that there is a, you know, that there's a sense of me one moment, and then it's obvious that there's no me the next moment. It can happen, you know, like an explosion or like a big bang. But of course, there's only talking, because we're talking about an apparent experience that happened, which didn't happen. And if you ask me, then I've only got my story, and in my story there was no recognition that there was no me. The only way that I have, or there's so there is no sense of, so me is a very obvious sense of being me. No me is not there is no recognition of that at all. That can't be recognized. There isn't anything to recognize. So I only recognized the absence of me, you could say, by the absence of the symptoms that I used to produce. So I lay for weeks in bed. I did get up and eat and stuff, but you know, I was not really very functional. But there was this incredible, overwhelming peace and emptiness. There was no, that was in no way recognized as no self at all, because of course the absence of me is there's no recognition of that. It's just being. It's just as it is. And what the symptoms that had vanished were all the thoughts that I would have had: anxious thoughts, self-conscious thoughts, um, responsibility thoughts. And it was just this incredible emptiness. So although I talk about no me or no self, what you're waiting for, Herlof, will never be seen. There's nothing to see. Because in the absence of me, there's just what is. And so the illusion that I had as myself was that I could recognize all this within me, you know, so that all of this was going on within me. It all belonged to me. I took ownership of it. And in a way, you could say self creates self. So it's a self perpetuating, it's a circular illusion. The more I think about thoughts, and then the thoughts come after each thought says, oh, that's my thought. What am I going to do about those thoughts? And so it's like a self-feeding mechanism. I mean, I don't know psychologically how that works, but in the absence of it, there's just no knowing. There's just no knowing, really. And no knowing seems very, well, it's just incredibly easy, isn't it? Because the knowing is all the effort that I need to know. And you, just as Tim was, you're waiting until you know. And you say to yourself, well, I'll know when I know. When I'm there, when it's realized, when it's seen, then I will know. And the only thing I can say to you is you won't, because you won't be there to know. I am and the knowing are the same energy. And so I talk quite a lot about not knowing or unknowing. And that sounds like, okay, I know I don't know. Because when you're listening to someone talking about not knowing, you can only infer that they must know that they don't know, or that they must know not knowing. But what those words are trying to convey is that there is no knowing without me, because I was the one who said, I know. So everything that I've spoken about, everything that comes out of this mouth is not known. So,
And the
by the way, I'm suggesting it's exactly the same for Herlof and every human being. It's exactly the same. The only difference is there is a sense, an illusory sense of ownership of the words, of the thoughts, of the emotion, of the feelings. And so you say to yourself that you know. I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm thinking. I know how I feel. And I'm suggesting you don't, other than you saying you do. That's it. But the waiting, I mean, I speak quite a lot about the waiting because that is the seeker's game. And of course, that is perfect for me, because what that waiting does is keeps me in the game of seeking. It keeps me, because I mean, you really won't know what to do if this if you fall away when you've been a seeker. I mean, it is the last thing a seeker would ever want. I mean, you say to yourself you want the end of seeking. Well, maybe you do. I'm not 100% sure you do. Because then you go, oh, what am I going to do now? Well, there's nothing to do. Because I am is the motivation to find out the truth. I don't know what you wanted to find out or what you are wanting to find out. For me, it was always the truth. And that was from childhood, really. I was a seeker of the truth. And I was always, if I could catch somebody out as, you know, that they, as a liar, or to find out something was not true that I previously thought was true, then I had, you know, as a seeker of truth, that was wonderful. I loved that, because me loves that, because it's getting closer. I'm getting closer and closer to the truth. I'm getting all reality. I mean, I think those words are almost synonymous to the sense of self, because I want to know reality and I want to know the truth. And I don't know about you. I don't know what you're after.
Here is, I'm just after total relaxation and peace. I think I'm not so interested in truth. It's just like I think that's the more like just easy life, you know.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I mean, it is, one thing is very obvious, that life is easier without me. Because who's the creator of problems? I am. Now, that doesn't mean to say that doesn't mean to say that, of course, life is just as it is. So, of course, there's problems, but there's a well, immeasurable difference between my problems and problems. My problems weigh 1,000 times more than a problem. So now my problems, what other human beings would refer to as Tim's problems, are no different from any other human being's problems. It's very obvious that what we call problems as human beings are universal. You know, problems with relationships, problems with money, problems with finding enough time for relaxation. Yeah.
Yes. So when you're, let's say, your friend, or when, let's say, you have a problem with a relationship, that would feel that feels the same as if a friend has a problem with a relationship. You know, that's no different, or.
You see, yeah, that might be a bit misleading, I guess.
Yeah.
If I have a problem with a relationship, or it's really hard to say. I will say that emotions are more. It's more emotional than mental in the problem. So, say a relationship broke down, or it was a breakup. Then emotionally, that's much more intense, because I can't distract with what I would have done, which was rationalizing it and trying to work it out, and but that just doesn't seem to happen. Now maybe that's just this character, but because the other thing I'd like to say is that there's one of the I think great illusion or great delusions of so-called awakening or liberation is that the character, you know, the things that I didn't like about the character would be improved upon. That's really not true. That's not the case at all. If there's any liberation, as Tim, the human being known as Tim, the character is free to be, it's just free, really. So it just is freely expresses itself, and there isn't itself. But what the self is mainly an inhibitor of how a human being would naturally behave and what a human being would naturally do. That's how it seems. So all the things that I thought would be improved about the character, Tim's character in in Liberation, have become almost more obvious and more apparent, you could say. Like, I'll give you an example: anger. So I was always, like most selves, often repressed a lot of anger because anger is socially unacceptable. And above all, Tim wanted to be approved of and accepted, you know. So this character is an extrovert, for want of a better word, but as a character, he was all about relationship with others. And anger is the biggest threat to that. And of course, we're taught as children how threatening, how wrong it is. And so we repress it. Well, the one that repressed it, he's not around. So out it comes spontaneously from nowhere. Boom. And then, but the wonder is, as quick as it appeared, it's gone. And when I say gone, it's completely gone. Whereas you know as well as I do what repressed anger is like. It fucking festers away, eating, you know, it's like a pustule, ever getting more and more bitter and twisted and angry and inflamed. And yeah, because that's what me does, because me's full of fear. I
And
think,
mm,
sorry, go on.
and the thoughts of responsibility and the anxious thoughts, like they never did come back, you know, because you said after you stayed in bed for some weeks, you know, the all thoughts of responsibility just they wasn't there anymore.
Well, it's, you see, I wouldn't want to be misleading in that either, because I think thoughts of responsibility just appear because this character naturally is quite responsible, very impulsive, and you know, so there's more impulsivity without a doubt, because there's less repression of what naturally the body wants to do. Not what I want to do, what the body wants to do, and I repress that. So thoughts of responsibility, I think if the character is naturally responsible, then they appear, but it's not my responsibility. And I know that sound, again, it might sound like, well, you're splitting hairs, what's the difference? Well, there's a massive difference. There's a huge difference between just acting in a, I want to use the word natural again, just how naturally, as a parental responsibility, say, that's very natural. Me, you know, of course, I claim it just as I claim everything else. Me claims responsibility. I'm the responsible one, and then resents it. So I'm doing the responsibility. Then there's another part of me that's going, I really resent all that responsibility because really I want to be watching YouTube clips of Tony Parsons. And so so there isn't anything that stops appearing. So there isn't anything that's my responsibility. There you go. That's, and I mean, that might sound like, well, what's the difference? Again, it's a huge difference. I'm not responsible. It just appears, if anyone else is looking in and I'm acting like a responsible parent, they go, oh, he's a responsible parent. He's acting responsibly. He must feel responsible. No. That's me as another me, just inferring. That's all we do with other human beings. All we can do as a self is infer. We just, so because I am, you are. So all I do is put myself in your shoes. And there's no doing that anymore. I have no idea about other human beings. We make that up. we never know another human being at all.
Can you, so it was when the me apparently dropped away, it wasn't like an explosion, that the physical feeling, like suddenly, like it wasn't like bang. It was more gradual, or what? Because was it obvious that there was no one there? It was just obvious. Or?
I didn't know. I still don't. So
No.
although I'm speaking about this, I've got no idea that there's a self or no self. No. Now, when you talk about an explosion, I can talk about an awakening experience that Tim had when he was 36 or something. No, younger than that, 32. Now that was explosive, but I think that's nothing to do with what we're talking about. That's almost like well, it is kind of what because I could say that's when the seeking began, which it probably did for Herlof as well. In earnest, he goes, what the hell was that? Because that's what I came back, you could say. I came back and went, what the hell happened there? That was just incredible. That was amazing. I was one with everything. I knew the rocks and the trees, and they knew me. So it was like I was the rocks and the trees. And they were me. But that was my description. That was the self's description after the so-called event. And of course, I had to describe it in terms of me. And so that's how I described it. But that's not actually how it was. It was indescribable. Because that's just how life is. Life isn't actually describable. But that's what we're attempting to do. I mean, I love speaking about this, but it's very obvious the words, they don't fall short. They're just completely irrelevant, really. But a futile attempt, you could say, at describing life.
And there's really nothing wrong with anything.
The only thing that's wrong with anything is me saying there's something wrong with something.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. How else could there be anything wrong? I mean, it's just human beings. Don't get me wrong. There is I think there is a natural, each character has the conditioning that it has, and that will be its ethics and its morality, regardless of a sense of self. They're just not mine. So I claim them as part of myself, the right and wrong. I know what's right and wrong. Well, without a solid sense of meanness, then it's very obvious that, oh yeah, well, this character has learned that. They're just learned beliefs. That's all. Right and wrong is just another belief. But that doesn't mean to say that that's going to stop. Each character will still have it. It's natural. They're just not my, so. Because I remember at Tony Parsons' meeting, there was a really very angry bloke who was saying, so what you're saying is I could just go out and murder the first person I see in the streets because there's no right and wrong. Now, of course, if the character's a murderer, if that human being has murderous intent, whether they're a self or not, then probably they will murder somebody. But if there's no, if it's not within the character to do that, of course, all this is about is liberation for the character, for the human being to be free, to freely express what it is being, without knowing that at all. Because the illusion is that I can know it and then I can manipulate it. Because all self is the controller, the manipulator of this life, saying, I can manage it to suit my best interests. I can manage it to make life better for me. And I am the one who is stopping me going out and murdering somebody. Well, you're not. Self never did anything. Just claims everything. That's it.
Thank you very much, Tim. I have to go down to my daughters now.
I'll go and see. You got two daughters?
2 daughters, yeah. So,
oh, lovely. How old are they?
8 and 11. So, and you, and your son, or do you have several children? Or?
So I've got 2 grown-up daughters.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 young boys, 2 young sons, 5 and 1.
Okay. Oi, oi, oi.
And I've got them on my own tonight. So how I've managed to do this interview, I don't know really.
No.
I've managed to get them both asleep, and they're both sound asleep in the same bed.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tim.
Well, I love talking to you, Herlof. It's great.
Yeah, the same to you. So I think I will see you on Thursday. I hope so.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Herlof.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
No, you're welcome. Take care. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, the same. Thank you. Bye. Bye.